Miss Michelle Weekley, thank you once again for always being a playable character, but now you are definitely in the lead for the amount of times appeared on the show. And there's a reason for that. One of my favorite, at least top couple of favorite Bitcoiners. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Right back at you. We have a lot in common. I want to hear all about your hockey game in Canada, but it's always great to talk to you. And I can't believe it's been 6 months. You sent me a message that we had spoken about 6 months ago, and things are just happening so fast. It's a great way to keep up with like what was happening 6 months ago and now it's happening. And I will say a lot has happened. So I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, and you just sent me something offline a minute ago,
Yeah.
and Alex Glasdine had posted it, and it's this weird world we live in where it's the typical like trust but verify. You have politicians or people saying things on the surface, and all of a sudden people are changing their tune. Like I just in the last month, a lot of us I think thought like, oh, we're going to war, and then it's like, oh, it changed tunes. Now it's like 180 degrees the opposite direction. But now all of a sudden, you see
It's
things
kind of
under
a
the surface that are
psyop.
still going on, right? So
Yeah, it's
yeah, I would
kind of a
love for you to
psyop.
yeah, exactly. I would love for you to kind of just maybe give, start off with like your state of where things are at and what you're thinking about things. Just, it could be, politically, obviously, Bitcoin adoption, the thing that Glassney just posted with still coming after, mixing and self custody and all these different things. So from your vantage point, what are things looking like right now?
All right, we're starting off hot. So I'm going to say something. I've posted this kind of. I have not said this out loud. I am now allowed to say this out loud. We are under FinCEN audit. We have been under FinCEN audit since the end of last year. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm like screaming about online, and people kind of just think that I'm crazy, but it's not coming from nowhere. There are a lot of things happening behind the scenes. Um, Coin Center, so Gladstein had linked to a few Coin Center articles, and I think that they are absolutely the best place to go to read through the efforts that are being made. So you get when you're online, you get all of these different snippets, and they're presented in different ways, and they're not always presented in the same way. So, like, what Gladstein posted is the possible ramifications of legislation that has been proposed. So, of course, that has not been passed yet, but I think it's really, really dangerous to just say, it hasn't been passed. We're not worried about it. Like, let's wait till it's more serious. Because these are the things that are shaping up. And government, as you know, works really slowly. Um, Not always intelligently, but certainly specifically and pointedly. And so they don't spend years building a case for something that they don't intend to follow through on, right? So by the time we get to, a bill has passed in the House, oh, let's stop it in the Senate. I mean, they've spent years preparing for that moment. So we really need to be paying attention much further upstream and helping to shape the discourse and the conversations and the education. Um, the other thing that I think is really, really dangerous is when I post a lot of this stuff, I get all of this knee jerk reaction that Bitcoin doesn't care. And I understand categorically that Bitcoin, the protocol, does not care, will remain entirely unaffected. But particularly for American citizens, if you want access to your Bitcoin, you need to care. I mean, they're talking about, so we're in this weird place where like it's really quite difficult to get non KYC Bitcoin, right? And that's by design. So all of the larger companies that most people are DCAing or buying through, you've got Swan, River, Unchained, all of these large companies, you're buying KYC Bitcoin, and that's fine. But the reason for that is because of regulation. And we're already at a point where if those companies said, okay, we're going to let you buy non KYC Bitcoin, well, they would be shut down and put in jail, right? So
Yeah.
that those efforts are being pushed further and further down the line so that the government, especially at the federal level, has more insight, more control, more say in what's happening. And this next push, so they've largely pushed out all non-KYC Bitcoin, all sats that are not subject to their AML policies, which is how they control money transmitting. But ultimately, it's how they enforce sanctions, and not just sanctions on a country level, but we don't really like the activity in this wallet. We're going to label it terrorist activity, blacklisted. So it's not just Russia that's affected ultimately. It, it could be all of the far right Trump extremists if it gets to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they've really KYC'd and AML'd all sats outside of a few platforms that are still surviving. You have peer-to-peer transfer, of course. I believe what they're coming for next is custodied Bitcoin. There's this intermediate option where you have registered a white labeled cold storage address and you're not allowed to use other addresses. You just have to use the one that's approved. And again, a lot of the pushback is Bitcoin doesn't care. And that's great. Like, if you're not a US citizen and you're not subject to US law, right? But I would prefer for all the people that have orange pilled not to be labeled criminals. Like, I'm prepared to be labeled a criminal, but I'm kind of in the minority, right? Like, we have our parents, our kids, our grandparents all buying Bitcoin. And do you really want those people to be labeled criminals? You might be prepared to fight back, but most people are just living their lives. Life is hard. It's complicated, right? So I think that this is the next fight, and it's going to be a really serious fight. And there have been some shifts in the environment. We saw the Fit 21 bill. We saw there was another one that was passed, and there is a lot happening at the state level, which is really encouraging. I've talked to Dennis Porter about his sort of strategy of attacking legislation at state level the way that the cannabis industry did. Cannabis is in this strange place where it's legal in different ways at the state level, but it's still illegal federally. And I think, it's his belief that that's sort of the path that we're going down, is that there will be states that are safe havens, and, the real battle ultimately is at the federal level. But if we get enough states on board with strong enough positions, we'll be in a much better position to fight back federally. So although this shift has kind of happened, Trump came out and said, he supports Bitcoin and crypto. He went to the Libertarian National Convention and actually spoke about self-custody. I know Bitcoin Magazine is really making a lot of effort to educate his campaign and raise money and show him that this is something that he should care about. And even, again, people are just knee-jerk, oh, we don't trust him. You don't have to trust him. As long as it's politically expedient for them to, be in the pro basket instead of the negative basket, that's really all that matters at this point in time. The current administration is so aggressively working to shut everything down that they have to be stopped. So that's where we're at. And it affects, of course, all of that is to say without saying you've got the Tornado Cash, the Samurai Guys, Wallet of Satoshi left a while ago. We saw Phoenix Slave. Ibex has left. Everybody is leaving, and now I think people understand why. It's only very large companies that feel that they have a chance to fight or the ability to fight, who have stayed, and I'm very, very fortunate. I feel very lucky to be working for one of them. We are looking at potentially trying to work with the OFR in Florida and save everybody's rights to use Lightning, at least in Florida. And then, of course, you create a case that other states can adopt. But there's a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot of money involved in doing all that. And so, that's not official yet, but it is something that we are trying very hard to do. I really thought I was like moving away from the alphabet agency and the things that happen in DC. And now I'm like a
I know.
complete expert on this whole new category of financial regulation. And it's, it's, it's interesting.
Yes, it is. It is very interesting. We want to thank our sponsor. This show is presented by Bitcoin Trading Cards, an orange pill in a pack, making talking about things that normally make you want to cry fun and easy. The scarcest and most educational cards to ever exist. Available now. So yesterday we were in Political Bitcoin Hour. We were talking about this very thing, obviously, in a lot of this, and we were talking about it doesn't matter if Biden's for it or Trump's for Bitcoin or whatever it is, because again, like you said, people are, well, Bitcoin doesn't care and like don't trust politicians. Right. And there's like a whole separate argument of like being politically involved, your locale, your municipality, all these things, right? We could go down that road too, and we have over time, but to me, like it's just a runway, giving ourselves runway. Like we need time to build Bitcoin out, right? We need time to build and to be able to adopt 8 billion people. And that to me is the biggest thing. So politicians, like to me, this is why it's the most important. Like you just kind of hit on this, what made me think about it, which is giving us the runway to get these people off our backs, like get this tyrannical, these people coming after custody and coming after grandma and like making them terrorists. Like, what are we doing here? And we need this runway and people out of our hair so we can build this runway over the next 2, 4, 8 years into adopt 8 billion.
You're dead on. We don't have to trust them. Just the mere like mechanics of changing up administrations slows down the current efforts to shut everything down enough that it gives us time to build out solutions for these problems, continue to build out layer 2 products, and also to sort of like ramp up our fight. Coin Center is mounting these defenses and really looking at the legislation and helping break it down in a way that people can understand it so that they can help fight it. So that's exactly dead on accurate. We don't have to trust them, the politicians, and quite frankly, they don't even need to follow through on their promises. Like literally just stopping the current administration will make such a profound difference. I don't care if the new administration does anything they say that they're going to do. If they do, that's great. That's like icing on the cake, right? But they don't even have to. Just getting the current people out gives us all of this runway to keep building and keep mounting a defense. Even if a new administration comes in and they do lots of things pro industry, we've got a 4-year cycle. So in 4 years, we might get a new regulatory attack, but that gives us 4 years to build more products and more policy positions and get more people on our team, do more education. A lot happens in 4 years. So yes, absolutely. It doesn't matter if you trust them or not. It doesn't even matter if they are trustworthy. Just stop the nonsense that's happening now is really what I would say.
Yeah, it's just, it's the only thing I can think of when it comes to a lot of this. And I think the other thing too, and this is the other thing we were talking about yesterday, which is I do truly believe, and again, I'll preface this with I'm an idealistic person. I think a lot of current Bitcoiners, the state of Bitcoiners, a lot of people are idealistic, and that's kind of why we're here. We're probably a little bit early. We're the early adopters. We see patterns emerge maybe quicker than others. But to me, I do think that the iceberg flips and just like quickly, like an iceberg does, right? It all of a sudden just flips one day. And I think this decade, it really does flip. And that's because of many things. It's not just because, numbers go up or people just wake up and have an epiphany one day. It's just because you have these elections that every 2 years, all of a sudden you have a bunch of Bitcoin politicians in and they just are flipping things like this. We're like very early stage Bitcoiners or people changing their mind on Bitcoin. And to me, whether it's the older class sunsetting and going away and into retirement, I guess we'll call it, and leaving academia, the halls of power everywhere across the board, and younger people coming in, to me, it's gonna happen very quickly. And I think the one thing that's tough, what we're talking about here is like being involved now, because again, you want people out of your hair. It's not that you're going to trust a politician per se, but you want people out of your hair to live your life and to be able to do what you want to do and and then also build this world. At the same time, it is hard to project. We tend to take what we are now today, what the world is like in the environment, and project it out 10 years the same way, like, oh, it's going to be the same thing, when in reality it's going to be a bunch of us that are in the halls of power, Bitcoiners that have the wealth, they are in the halls of power, and then things, defund itself. I guess the apparatus, the deep state, is just naturally defunded. How do you see it playing out going forward? Because that's how I just can't help but feeling that way. I think it's really the truly gradually then suddenly. What do you think in the next 5 or 10 years? I know it's a lot, but I have this overwhelming feeling that's it's hard to imagine like how fast it's really going to come because of these demographics shifting.
Yeah, no, I agree. These things happen, they start to gain momentum, and then at some point, kind of, well, mathematically, it would, kind of, it goes parabolically. But I think what's happening in the real world follows similar patterns. Um, I think I struggle to have such an optimistic view, but I think it's only because I'm like in the weeds right now. But if I
Yeah.
zoom out, I do very much agree with you. I believe that we're going to win. I think so many people are really fed up with everything that's happening. And the one sort of silver lining to how bad it all has gotten is that it's waking up a lot of people who previously were clueless, they didn't
Yep.
care, they couldn't be bothered. And so, we're really gaining momentum. The numbers are on our side now. I have, like, I think there's a case for balkanization, which is sort of one of the more extreme views that I have. But I actually hope that it doesn't come to that. I hope that we can, like, lower the temperature on everything and get all these really old people out, get younger people with brains, even if we don't all agree on everything. I think there's a lot that we can agree on. This is one of the ways that Bitcoin fixes this. Like, we can agree on Bitcoin. There's all kinds of people in Bitcoin, people with different political opinions. And I think Bitcoin helps lower the temperature. Like, you and I have talked about this a lot, where we really want to go back to a world where we can be friends with people that we disagree with. We can sit down and have
Yep.
conversations with people that have opposing views. And I think it's important to bring that back, have conversations, and ultimately test all of our opinions and viewpoints, and come out with the strongest opinions. And Bitcoin really enables that in a lot of ways. So I agree, a lot of these people, it might be really, like, kind of crass, but, like, they're just gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of them
That's
are like
reality.
one sneeze away from just falling
Yeah.
over, and if we have to wait them out until they literally die before we can get new people in there, like, we're close enough.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
okay,
I
Um,
know.
but yeah, there's younger people getting involved, and we're going to take over, and then we win. So, and it's
Yeah.
just a matter of, like, how far does it go between now and then. And so I think it's important to remember that, like, we will win, just we're fighting between now and then.
What do you like anecdotally, your friends and family? What are you seeing? Like, I have so many people I
Yeah.
know that were not political before, and they are now, and they see what's going on, they get what's going on. I've had numerous people flip, like ardent for 20 years, like ardent, like left, like Marxist almost, and then flip to be like, well, Donald Trump's getting screwed. Like, wild things happening. Like, what have you seen anecdotally, just with friends and family in your sphere of people that aren't necessarily in the
Yeah.
Bitcoiner world, obviously, but like, I've seen a ton of this, and to me it just goes to, if Trump doesn't win in a landslide, we've got some real problems. It kind of, because I thought this for 15 years now. Like,
Yeah.
I see so many people flipping and seeing the light, but yet the results don't really bear that out in elections. And anecdotal, but again, like, we've got some real problems we need to kind of address here. And I think that's the
Yeah.
fever pitch we're getting to, where people are just, they kind of had it, because the things aren't
Yeah.
being represented for how they're feeling.
I agree completely. And anecdotally, I think I'm seeing similar things. I have people in my life who 4 years ago were, I can't stand him. I would never vote for him. They either they went out and voted against Trump, or they just didn't vote at all because they didn't like
Yeah.
Biden, but they refused to vote for Trump. And I know several people who were doing that 4 years ago, who intentionally went out this year and registered to vote so that they could vote. I'm not going to say for Trump, but against what's happening now.
Right.
And I think so many people are in that position. Even my friends in DC, so I still have I shouldn't say a lot of friends in DC, but some of my best friends still live in DC. And so that's my barometer for the other side, right? Like 4 years ago, I'll never forget having a conversation with one of my best friends, kind of leading up to November. And he said something along the lines of like, well, nobody, I forget precisely what he said, but he essentially said, nobody, like not a single person is going to vote for Trump this year. Not only does he stand no chance, but this is going to be a landslide, like for Biden. And we, to me, it was like a wake up moment for me because I'm in Florida, and in Florida, it's very different. Like I was kind of feeling flip flop of that. But that's like the bubble that they live in DC. Like you can live in DC and not know a single person that supports Trump. And that's what it looked like 4 years ago. But now I talk to them and they're like, I'm not going to say they're considering voting for Trump because I don't think that most of them will, but I don't think that most of them are voting for Biden. I think most of them are not voting at all because they're very fed up with this sort of 2020 2.0, especially, obviously having seen the results of what happened over the past 4 years. But I do think that there's like a lot of them that might quietly go vote for Trump, even if they hate that they have to do it. We can't have a continuation of what's going on. I mean, it's just fiscally, politically, regulatorily, like the freaking DOJ being weaponized. I mean, there are so many things that are happening that are so extreme. It's got to stop. I agree with you that if Trump doesn't win in a landslide, it's going to be very hard to believe that we had a free and fair election with accurate election results. I don't know a single person who is not just like jumping out of their seat to either proactively vote for Trump or cast a vote to stop the current administration.
Yeah. It's like you got to run thought experiments too. Like lately I've been asking people, about, because this is not like a new phenomenon. It's not like Joe Biden like messed up the election and like we can't audit it. We don't know what happened. And like people are like, oh, you're election denier. And it's like, well, this has been happening for decades. Like we know Abraham Lincoln voted in 1960. I don't ask me how that happened, but
you don't even have to go back that far.
Right.
Like Hillary claimed that Trump stole the election in 2016. You go back to 2012. Like you can go back and verify. You don't have to trust. Go verify. They have whoever has lost has always claimed that there was nonsense happening. And maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but certainly questioning whether or not the things that happened were legit is not a crime.
You nailed it. I think questioning, like that we've criminalized questioning things, questioning things you're injecting in your body. We can't question the election. You can't question anything. And that's when you're like, that's even beyond, it's the free speech realm, I guess, but it's like, it's almost beyond that even. Like you can't even like think. So like the thought experiments I like to play with people is like, hey, you know what? Every person who even thought remotely, like the January 6th people are in prison, like a couple of them or whatever. Right. You know what? That's not enough. There should be tens of millions of people in prison. Like if you even thought in your mind at one point that election might not be fair, all those people should be in prison. And you start going down this road and people are like, well, I mean, no, it's like, well, now you see what I'm saying. Like you can't play this game. And like, you think of like the election, like even the poll. If you asked every single person, hey, if I just had MAGA people running every precinct, every polling center in the entire country, not one person on the left, quote unquote, was allowed into a polling center, would you trust the election? No, you wouldn't. Not one person would say, oh yeah, I would trust it. Well, there you go. There's your answer, because we can't audit the election. We don't know what's going on. Like, there you go. So it just, it's amazing to me what we give into and like what we allow to happen.
Oh, you and I are so on the same page. I think the scary thing is the number. It's not just politics, right? The scary thing is the number of ecosystems that this has been applied to. So I will never, till the day that I die, I will never get over this trust the science bullshit. Because the literal definition of science, right? Like the scientific method is to question the science. You have a hypothesis, you question it, and then you do it again. You iterate, right? And that is how science evolves. It's how it exists. It's how it's been for hundreds of, like, all of his existence. And so, you're right that they're not criminalizing supporting Trump or freedom. They're not criminalizing, pro or anti, they are, but what they're really, really criminalizing is free thought. And that is super terrifying. And that is what must be stopped. It was such a jarring experience for me. I think we have talked about this, actually. I think you're the one that I said to. It was such a jarring experience for me to come back to the US in 2018. And I spent a lot of time reflecting on what has happened, because I'm not the first person to go live abroad, right? Lots of people live abroad. So why was that such a profound experience for me? And I think ultimately the answer is the time frame that I was gone, because I was really gone mostly from 2014 to 2018. You look at the things that happened in that time frame, and you really see a lot of the major changes that happened. And so I just got dropped back into it, and it was crazy. And I called it out for, a few years, and nobody would believe me until 2020, until they locked us all in our homes. And then people were willing to talk about it and to believe sort of some of the things that I was saying. So that's kind of a tangent, but they really are trying to criminalize the ability to question things, and it has to be stopped. It has to be stopped in politics, but in science also, in finances. I mean, talking about Bitcoin, there's no conversation happening about are these people actually terrorists? They're just labeling people terrorists, and that's it. There's no conversation about anything anymore. So, yep. That's kind of becoming my new message in Bitcoin is lower the temperature, calm down. We have to talk about this. I don't care if you support this person, this policy, this viewpoint. We have to stop the screaming and the just automatic opinions. We have to be willing to talk things out and also come together with people that we disagree with.
Yeah. It's funny, you made me think of Nolan Bowerley always said following the money is a lot more efficient and effective than following the science. That's, you have to continually follow the money, especially in a broken fiat system. Follow the currency, I guess, not follow the money. So we don't have money. Money is a store of value. We haven't had a money since at least 1971. So you have to do
follow
that.
The fiat.
And then follow the fiat. There you go. Yeah, exactly. And you have to. And it's not to say that you won't have people being paid off in a Bitcoin standard too. I think that's something that, again, that's further down the road. That'll happen, but it's going to happen much less. And people are going to have to actually provide value aside from just paying people off, right? So that you're going to have actual, that I don't want to get down that tangent necessarily, but that it will happen. It doesn't fix everything in life, and people get caught up in these nuances, but it's going to fix, a lot of the things in life, a lot of things that we're dealing with. But I want to make it clear that Michelle and I both, I'm putting words in Michelle's mouth, but this happens on both sides. It's not that it just happens to be that the blue side's in power right now and the red side's trying to come in. This knows no boundaries. And this is something that they, you think about, I think it was almost unanimous. I believe there's only a couple of people that voted against the bill to audit Ukraine cash just 6 months ago, probably the last time we talked, actually. There was both sides. No one voted to audit the cash that was going over there. And I think Rand Paul had put an amendment up, and that got struck down to audit or do something, and that got struck down. No one had voted. So this knows no boundaries. I mean, Trump and Bush both had at least 2 years where they had all chambers. Basically, nothing happened. They didn't do anything. There's no agencies that went away. There's nothing. I mean, the deep state just kept right on going, and this knows no boundaries. I think both sides do truly cheat in their own ways, and their own apparatuses are set up, and they like that, right? It keeps them in power, both sides, to a large extent, and they just get to battle back and forth, have their cocktail parties in the evening. Again, you spent time in that world seeing this happen, where it's just like, hey, if I can just get through this 9 to 5 and just act like I'm doing things, and then I get to go to my party later this tonight, Monday, and then Tuesday night, and then Wednesday night, and then Thursday night. This is how this stuff happens. This is how Ashley Madison becomes the biggest, Washington, D.C. is the biggest Ashley Madison, city in the world. And how can I get an affair? How can I do ridiculous things? And anyway, it's just, no, I'm going on a tangent, but I want to make it clear that it's both sides. And that's what people are starting to wake up to, that, oh my gosh.
In a lot of ways, there are no political parties in D.C. There's people that come in, for one party on one side. Like when there's a change, there's people that come and go, but they're not the ones in charge. The ones in charge never leave. I was there through many changes in political leadership, but nothing actually changes. It is totally a 9 to 5 where they all play pretend, and then they all go at the end of the day. They all go to K Street. They go to the same bars. They go to Capitol Hill. They go to the same bars. They go to the same clubs. They play racquetball together. They're all friends, and they are the people that need to stop, the unelected bureaucratic class. And we see portions of this coming from different sections of government. There's a lot of them that come from the intel agencies, and the FBI. You can see now, obviously, within the DOJ. A lot of the administrative positions that people don't even know exist have a ton of power. So the head of the Department of Education, it's not like a cool, sexy job, but they got a lot of power, especially, over your life if you have children. So these people are all friends. It's absolutely, I think the saying, there's no red, there's no blue. It's just the state versus you. And that's absolutely true. So I think, people get caught up not wanting to support either side. And I understand that, but if you don't care and get involved, then they're just going to do whatever they want. You have to be, especially in really important times like we're living through now, you have to get involved, or you're going to live in a world that you don't want to live in. So, I'm hopeful, I'm cautiously optimistic that Trump has been so aggressively targeted by the deep state that he will try to make some changes, fire some people, do some radical shit. I am cheering that on. But the truth is, even if he doesn't, it stops the bullshit that's happening right now. And that's really what I'm cheering for.
Gives the runway.
Yeah, exactly. So, amazing optimistic case. Yeah, he goes in, slashes all this shit, fires all kinds of people. I will cheer that on. But I'm pragmatic, I'm pragmatic about the fact that might not happen. And even if that doesn't happen, that's okay too, because it gets the bullshit out, builds the runway. And I think the misunderstanding that people have who aren't necessarily really deep in the weeds, the misunderstanding that people have is how desperately we need that, or it's going to get bad in a way people can't imagine. The Alex Gladstein tweet is going to be the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. It's, you and I get a lot of, excuse me, you and I get a lot of crap, or from BJ, or certain people, or Bitcoin Twitter, because we tend to go down the route of, hey, there's a few people controlling things, the agencies are doing a lot of this, the psyops, right? And we go down that route, and then we'll get crap from Bitcoin Twitter, or our good buddy BJ will hit us with Hanlon's razor or something like that, which I will say BJ has helped shift my frame a little bit in the sense that I do think there is a little bit more incompetence over malice from a general perspective of, I think vast majority of these people, like you said, they're all playing racquetball together. I think most people, and most of the politicians, even a lot of them, the deep state, they think they're doing the right thing. They think they're Jason Bourne.
Absolutely.
They think they're doing the right thing. And that's what's so insidious about all this, actually. Like, it's a really wild thing, because you look at, like, and again, I hesitate to bring up some of these things, but you look at certain military or police agencies over the last 100 years who were doing very heinous things and offing humans mass extinction processes. And you wonder, like, how does that happen? Like, how did you get to that point? A lot of them thought they were doing the right thing. They had been so hit over the head with whatever poverty or whatever it was, or told, hey, we're going to off you if you don't come do this for us. And I don't think we, as like sitting in this chair, I don't have all that perspective, and I can't see all that. And you got to put yourself in those people's shoes. So I think, to BJ's point, or trying to empathize with what's all going on, I think this is why it's so important, and why, like, you and I, Nico and Opti, I know there's certain people out there, the Dennis Porters, the Gladsteins, like, there's certain people that will talk about voting a lot, because this started 100 years ago. I mean, it started hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And if you aren't in things now, and you're not doing it daily and staying up with it, you become the frog in the boiling pot. And we've let it get so good, and just everyone turned their backs for so long, that now we're in this place now. And to everyone's point, voting might not help anything. And I agree, like, voting might do zero right now, but it's the principle of doing it and setting the precedent, I believe, as humans, and also your posterity seeing it. And like, hey, we need to do things, multiple things at once, vote, and then vote with your wallet, vote with your feet, do these other things too. I think that's why it's important. Yeah. It's not that it might, so anyway, I love your thoughts on that, because to me, there's so much nuance there, and it's such a deep topic, but I think it is important, because there's a lot of incompetence because of these centralized agencies. Of course, there's a lot of Spider-Man memeing, and like, he said, she said, I thought Jan did it. No, John did it. That's the problem. That's why you need to get back to localities, because huge entities create this fog of war.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You and I are just on the same page. The centralization is really the centralization enables it so that there's just very few people at the top that have like outsized power, and the rest of it is incompetence. Unfortunately, the people that rise to those positions that have the majority of the power, they are the absolute psychopaths, because you and I have discussed what it takes to get there. You have to participate in all of this lying and corruption. You have to go along with like a lifetime of that to work your way up there. And a person with any type of morals doesn't do that. So you burn out. They just burn through anybody that has even an ounce of integrity. So, yes, there's a lot of incompetence, but there's also this wild phenomenon where you have these crazy people who genuinely believe that they are smarter than you, better than you, and that you are not fit to make your own decisions. They really do believe that. That was, I think, the most shocking thing that I experienced. I kind of understood that from DC. Like, it wasn't a foreign concept to me, but I thought that it was more about class and snobbery when I left DC. We went to the best schools, and we have the best jobs, and we make more money, and you can kind of write it off as these people are super snobby and I just don't want anything to do with it. But as that plays out, and you get 10-20 years down the road from that, what it is the snobbery is true, but what also becomes true as the worst of these people rise to the top is the belief that they're better than everyone else, and that they should have the power to make the decisions. We saw that during COVID, like, for your own good. So how the fuck do you fight against that, right? What's the antidote to that? And it's exactly what you said. It's getting involved in your community on a local level, voting, not just voting for the president, but voting in local elections, befriending your neighbors, like going back to a time where we were really involved in our daily lives instead of just like online all day. And then every 4 years, yes, this is the team that I'm on. But I agree with you. I agree that there's a chance that our votes don't matter, maybe, but we have to at least try. Like, if you have any complaint, like, you have to do something about it. And the vehicle that we have is to vote. And the more people who go out and vote and say, we have to stop this. Like, if I know in my real life that every single person I know voted one way, I expect for the results to match that, right?
Yep.
For comparison, if most of the people that I know just say, fuck it, I don't care, I don't believe it's gonna matter, then I can't compare that
You'll believe
against what
anything.
actually happens,
Yep.
right? Yeah, there's no like
Yep.
frame of reference. So
Yep.
you have to do it. You have to fight, because we have to see, it gives us a barometer for like what's really happening.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I do think, like, again, I know you've read numerous things. I've read numerous things over the years. I mean, shoot, I got it right here. I mean, you do have to believe that there are evil things at play. Like there certainly are. There's people at the top that they're Malthusians, they're Marxists. Like they are, Machiavelli, the prince. Like that. Yeah. There are those people, like you said, that believe they are the righteous ones. They're the king, the overlord. They know best. I was in the right bloodline, so like I know better than you. And that's just reality. That's life. That's good versus evil. And so many people have a hard time. I've talked to. That's probably the thing I hear the most. Actually, is I just can't believe that they would do that. I thought they had the best interest for me, like our leaders. And it just like blows me away. It's like, if you never read a history book, you never read the Bible, if you never read Machiavelli or like anything at all, and then you look back like, oh, of course you haven't, because no one does it in school anymore. The government schools don't force you to read anything or do any history. So you start thinking like, this is an agenda at this point. Like how can I think any other way? So you see things like this, and like you said, politics is downstream from culture, as we've talked about many times with Breitbart famously saying that. And it's like going to the voting booth, talking to people, that's culture. And as that changes, and then people, like you said, are expecting something to happen and it doesn't, we're at that point right now. Like we just said it earlier, like if Trump doesn't win in a landslide, there's going to be real questions. There's going to be real fever pitch things going on if he doesn't win, because the polls, everything is showing that, the fervor, just everything. So anyway, it's wild to me looking at that. But I go back to Jessica, my wife, her Italian uncle, is always said BBB. That's business, Brandon. He's like, the business is BBB. It's bullshit and then bribery and then blackmail. And that's politics, right? Like that's from the Italian playbook right there. Like that's politics, that's business. That's how that world operates. And then you have the Malthusian, the Marxist Club of Rome. Like you go down these roads of seeing this process, and we're in the middle of that, right? Who's the most blackmailable character possible? Yes. So we can use them to be our puppet. And that's why they don't like Trump, at least in my opinion, because he's not as blackmailable as a million other people they could pick from. So we're in an interesting time. So
absolutely. You know what upsets me? I'm going to say this because people don't know this, and it makes me angry that they don't know it. Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago way back in the day. There's like one picture of the two of them together at some party, and people like to post it, and it's like this gotcha thing. But Trump in Palm Beach proactively went to the FBI and said, this dude's a member of my club. I get a lot of complaints about it. Let me give you all the info that I have on him in case it would help. That is verifiable. It is on record with the county. And then he banned him. So it's just like there are so many facts that people unfortunately don't know because they've been black holed by all of these algorithms. So I'm sorry, I don't even know if that was related. I had to get that in there.
No, it's just it is though. It's like we're living in this world, but again, that's where people are starting to wake up. It takes time. People are starting to wake up though and realize like, wow, I've been being lied to my entire life, or for 65 years or whatever, like however long you've been around. You're realizing like this is really quick though. We were touching this earlier though. So you probably know a little bit more about this than I do. I know like the JFK stuff, it led to Lyndon Johnson, of course, the Gulf of Tonkin, and then you get into KYC AML laws, and all of a sudden the bank finance laws are coming in. What is KYC AML? Like, what does it really do? Like, what are we really doing with this? Because there's still bad events going on. There's still bad people doing bad things. So I thought this was supposed to cure this. We're now 60 years into this. I'm very curious as to like what are these laws even doing here? Because they don't seem to be doing much. We got a lot of things still happening here that they don't seem to be curing things.
These laws are measures of control and nothing else. They're unconstitutional measures of control, and they need to be repealed. I talk a lot about the about the Patriot Act. I have learned that at equal measure is the Bank Secrecy Act. Coin Center has a really great article on this. If you go and look at the charges against a lot of people that have been charged in the Bitcoin and crypto space, it's very interesting, the charges that they are actually charged with. A lot of it gets written off like, oh, CZ was a scammer. Tornado Cash wasn't on Bitcoin, so we don't care. You have to look at the actual charges. Violating the BSA, conspiracy to go against AML. There's this IEEPA, which is some emergency act power that got put in place, and it's being used to prosecute people now that aren't complying hard enough. So KYC stands for Know Your Customer. It is an anti-money laundering scheme of surveillance that was concocted to survey money. And they're in a panic. So KYC is part of an AML policy. AML stands for anti-money laundering. These are all financial services requirements that stem from the BSA, which is the Bank Services Act. And the Bank Services Act is basically the Patriot Act in finance. So one of the blackest pills that I have ever taken is, after working really hard to get my dream job, which I absolutely love and am endlessly thankful for. But one of the things that I had to do after I got my dream job working in Bitcoin for a fully licensed MSB was to go through a government-sponsored AML KYC training. And I can't even give you the details about the bullshit that we are required to do. Because if I tell you everything, first of all, I don't know everything that we do. It's all very segregated. We have legal, we have compliance, we have our AML, we have an AML person. What I will say is that it feels a lot like being in China and having your CCP rep at the table. People get mad when I make that comparison. In fact, somebody from the Freedom Fest called me out specifically about my parallels to China and said, do you actually believe this? And, I responded and said, to some extent, it's hyperbole to help people understand how close we are. But to be honest, the more that I learn, the less hyperbole it is. It's a fucking fact. You don't see the fucking comparison between being required to have a CCP member at your company and being required to have a fucking AML compliance officer at your company. Go do some fucking research, because it's absolutely like, what is the difference? What is the difference? Sorry, that got me going.
No, I think it's frustrating because, we've come, and again, it's human nature. It's like, you try not to get frustrated about it, because I know it's just life in a sense of like a life cycles. How do we know what we don't know? And that's like, you feel like you're combating that a lot as a Bitcoiner, right? Like, even for ourselves, right? What we don't know, but you look around other people and you keep trying to increase your humility and lower your ego. It's tough, obviously. And you're just like, how do you not see these things? Like, how do you not? And again, I just come back to lack of history, government run schools, not teaching any of these things. Like you said, how do people not see this? Like the Boston Tea Party was over a couple % tax, and people are, the Americans are dumping it into the harbor. Like, get bent, and then here we are, like, well, the unrealized gains tax, and we're going to increase capital gains to 50% to 70%. And it's people are like just taking it. And it's just like, what
I
I,
don't.
and then just go back to again the ease and comfort and not knowing your history, but also like, well, I mean, fantasy football is nice, and like I got my six pack still.
Right.
So and then I just naturally think of 1984, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and the sedation. You know, like every billboard you see now is a higher learning
Yeah.
pot shop, a beer ad, or something like that. It's just like, here, sedate yourself, or it's a big pharma ad on
It's true.
TV. Just sedate, 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 and just to numb yourself. And again, sorry, BJ, but then I go back to these books from decades and decades ago, or reading Machiavelli or the Communist Manifesto, or seeing what the Frankfurt School did 100 years ago. And like they talked about these things, like, hey, this is how we're going to do it.
Yep.
Cloward and Piven, Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. And I go back and like they've told us they're going to do these things. They're going to do it from the inside.
Yes.
They're going to destroy the family, destroy the culture, sedate people. And it's like, how can you not look around and be
when
like, they've done
someone
this?
tells you who they are, you have to believe them.
Believe them. Yep.
BJ,
Yep.
we love you, but we're going to win you over. It's true. They don't even hide it. We're going to get him. We're going to get him.
We will. We will.
It's
Hopefully
true.
It's because we
I
just
think the sedation. Yeah. I think the sedation is really, it's really something to be looked at. And it's one of the reasons that I love Bitcoiners, because so many Bitcoiners are like opting out of all of that. And in my own journey, it's something I realized was a very big piece of my own journey, because when I left DC, and I moved, halfway across the world, I gave up most of my stuff. And I had no reason. I intentionally was not acquiring stuff because I was living in this temporary place and I was traveling so much. And what I realized, it wasn't even intentional, but what happened is I completely opted out of this consumer society. I stopped consuming. Because I didn't have anywhere to put my stuff, right? Like I was just traveling all the time. And that is really, really powerful. I get reminded of that. Like we just had Memorial Day and they're doing all these sales. There's a sale everywhere on everything. And I just look around and I'm like, I don't need any of it. Like I don't want to buy anything. Like, and so that's part of it, right? The consumerism gets you caught up in the sedation, and it's vice versa. You get sedated, and then it's very easy to just think, I want the bigger TV so that I can further enjoy my video games, or, I want the new strain of the new beer, the new alcohol, the new strain of weed that they're selling. That's a form of consumerism. And, it's all been by design. I spent 10 years working in tech startups, and we designed this shit on purpose. For people that are listening, if you haven't watched the documentary, The Antisocial Network, I think there's two of them. I think there's two documentaries about the social media platforms, and there's a lot of people who helped build them, who were executives at a lot of those companies, that came out and said, kind of blew the whistle on how dangerous they are. I mean, they were really built to be propaganda machines that controlled the dopamine in your brain and really like narrowed down or obliterated your ability to focus on anything. And I see that, I get caught up spending too much time on my phone, and it becomes harder to concentrate on other things. And it goes both ways, set the phone down, go outside, touch grass, and everything sort of slows down, and you get your ability to concentrate back. So yeah, it is unfortunately all by design. Some of it ignorance, some of it intentionally evil. But whether, regardless of, why it happened, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change the antidote. And the antidote is opt out, slow down, get involved locally with your community, your friends, your family, give your time and attention to the things that matter.
Yep. So true. I know we're getting toward the end here. I got a couple quick ones here before we play our little word game, our little lightning round with you. Does Biden make it to election day, or does Michelle come in, Gavin Newsom? What's your quick take on that?
So I didn't think so, but I have my friends in DC, have influenced me. I'm feeling more and more like he's going to. They're all saying, you know, and they're still more plugged in than I am, and they're all saying, you
Right.
know, we thought that would happen too, but now it's too late. There's no way that can happen
Hmm.
at this point. So I'm kind of 50-50 on it. Like, and I'm a little biased because I kind of want him to at this point, because I think we can beat him. I think if someone else swoops in, that they probably beat Trump. So I'm going to vote yes, he makes it. I mean, he's not really going to be like alive. It's, you know, it's puppeteering, but like they're going to pretend that he's there.
Oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, I just for the record too, like I did not believe he would make it either. And I will say I still think there's a high chance he doesn't actually. I think like I'm gonna interview Joe Calasari probably tomorrow actually, it looks like. And I'm gonna ask him because yeah, Joe, the one thing that I
I
always kind
love
of clash
Joe.
with Joe
Yeah.
is a lawyer, but he
Yeah.
tends to believe what the law says or what the government says they're going to do. And me, I don't believe anything the government says or what the law says. Like I just
Right.
think they'll do
Right.
whatever they want at that convenient moment. So that's the one thing I always
Yeah.
kind of clash with Joe with. So I'm looking forward to. So like to me, like what your
Yeah.
friends are saying, like legally,
Right.
yeah, sure, or whatever. Like that
Right.
makes sense. There's not enough time.
But that doesn't
It
mean
don't
there
matter.
won't
There's no
be.
rules. Right.
Right.
There's no rules. Like, come on.
Yes.
They'll make
Yeah.
new rules.
And it doesn't mean that he doesn't like sneeze and fall over and their hand is forced, you
True.
know? So
True.
it's going to be
Yeah.
wild. Whatever
It's gonna be crazy.
happens,
Either
it's
way,
going to be wild. I mean,
it's gonna be wild. It's gonna be wild no matter who wins. Yeah, it's gonna be absolutely
yeah.
wild no matter who wins. So buckle
Yeah.
up.
I mean, shit.
Biggest.
Today, supposedly, the Trump verdict is supposed to come in today.
That's
Sorry,
true. Yeah.
that's a
Oh
whole
boy.
nother. Yeah.
Buckle up, kids. Yeah. Seriously, that's a whole different. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go
Biggest
ahead.
threat. No, you're good. Biggest threat to, I mean, we kind of touched on it, but like biggest threat you see, I guess, again, it could be politically or, you know, to Bitcoin or just adoption. Like what is the thing that worries you or scares you the most, keeps you up at night?
Oh, that's easy. Government regulatory crackdown on American citizens, and global too, right? We see that if
Mm-hmm.
you're, you know, even if you're not an American citizen, you're not located in the United States, you're subject to all of these KYC AML regulations. So hands down, by a very wide margin, it's government regulatory crackdown. And I understand that Bitcoin doesn't care, but we are all citizens of a country. And unless we want to go to jail, like a lot of people are now going to jail, you know, unless you want to be Roger Ver and sit in prison, we have to follow the laws that they make. So it does matter.
I agree totally. Explain to me, give us a little pitch on Byte Federal and what you guys do and what you guys do for Bitcoiners.
Yeah, so Byte Federal was one of the first Bitcoin ATM companies. We do absolutely everything in-house. We are the only company that does everything in-house. So we assemble the machines in America, by the way. We wrote the code that runs them. So we do both the hardware and the software, and we maintain the network. You know, if a machine breaks, we go out and we fix it. So that's kind of the bread and butter. And over the past year or two, we've expanded into more of like a software development company, really. And there's a number of products that we're particularly focused on right now. We have a non-custodial Bitcoin wallet that is fully Lightning enabled, and we believe that we are doing that in a fully compliant way. So we are fighting for your Lightning services. You can download the wallet, use the Lightning wallet, and they're trying to come after that, and we are fighting tooth and nail against it. We also have this merchant point of sale device. You know, we're sort of re-examining how that functions to make sure that it does comply with the new interpretation of regulation. So that's very frustrating. But there's a couple of areas where we're hyper focused, and that's on you know, small business merchant adoption, where there's a lot of demand. And also in the real estate industry, we've seen a flood of demand. So we've got a couple of partnerships that we hope to be announcing soon. And we're building like a custom tailored product for those partnerships. So lots happening. And also you will see some announcements coming soon. We're obviously at the forefront of the fight with the federal government. And so we would be foolish not to do some geopolitical arbitrage and perhaps open offices elsewhere. So, we will be doing that, and the details of that will be coming out soon.
Beautiful. Love that. Always love Bitcoin companies building out the Bitcoin structure, which is obviously right into segues, I guess, really perfectly from the conversation we're having, which is the runway, being involved locally, politically, so we can get the runway to do the things you guys are doing and do this kind of stuff. So beautiful. All right, to wrap up here, a little word game, a little segment presented by Bitcoin Trading Cards.
Oh, so, those are that. What is that front card? Okay.
This is the Genesis block. Bam. Little Genesis block action. So that's that one. Got a little G. Edward Griffin.
Show me the front card. Oh, okay. There we go.
Yep. Little Genesis
I love
block.
it. They're so beautiful.
I know. I wish I was the artist. That's for sure. I wish I could do art like that.
Yeah, that's not a skill I have. I have skills. That's not one of them.
That's not one.
But I love, it gives me even more like admiration for the people that do, because shoot, I could try and it would not turn
out well. No.
All
right. Little word game. I'm going to give you, we got like a dozen or so words, 12 or 15 words, I think. And just give me like lightning round. Give me, your 1 word, 2 word answer when I put the word out there.
Okay, hold on. Give a 1 or 2 word answer. I lost you.
Yeah, like lightning round.
Okay.
Yep. Just lightning round, just like 1 word answer. What comes to your mind when you think? It could be a couple words, but just like what comes to your mind when you hear it. All right, let's rock and roll. Satoshi Nakamoto.
Genius.
3-letter agencies.
Fuck them. Abolish them. Sorry.
Yeah, I love it. States' rights.
Bring them back.
Politics.
Necessary headache.
FDI, foreign direct investment.
Money laundering.
Washington, D.C. Just say what's in your head. You want to say it.
Nuke it.
Oh my gosh. Florida.
Love it. Sunshine State.
Mentorship.
Very good for society. We need more mentors and more people looking for mentors.
Love that. Global warming.
Nonsense.
Oh man. Personal development or personal growth.
Always. You should always be developing, always be getting better.
Love that. Faith.
Bring it back. It's important.
Love it. Proof of work.
Bring it back. Also important.
Elon Musk.
I like him. I think he's autistic, so he's strange. He has certain fixations, I don't agree with everything he's doing, but I think he means well.
Vitalik Buterin.
Unicorns. Like weird, puffy ones, not beautiful ones running through a field, but just weird, like fake, puffy cartoon unicorns.
Oh, man. Bitcoin trading cards.
Amazing art and fantastic education tool.
And Byte Federal.
Freedom, libertarians, anarchists fighting for your financial freedom. And I'm lucky to be part of that team.
So cool. Well, it's a perfect fit for you, that's for sure, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people find you at?
I am just on X. It's Twitter, X, whatever. It's my name,
I still
Michelle
call it
Weekley.
both.
I only have one account. It's got the blue check mark. You know, that's how you know it's me, not all these fake accounts. So I'm there, and yeah, that's the only place that
Awesome
I am.
fire.
So find me there. And also, I'm at lots of the events. So I love meeting people in real life. I'm looking forward to seeing
Yeah.
you in Nashville. You'll be in
Oh yeah,
Nashville
the
in July.
conferences.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say, we talked about this earlier. We didn't talk about the conferences yet. So real quick, yes, we'll be in July. We'll be in Nashville. The Bitcoin Trading Cards team will be there. And I believe Pacific Bitcoin, maybe
Cool.
Unconfiscatable too. So 2 or 3 for
Okay.
sure to finish the year. What about you?
Yeah. So I have Prague next. I'm actually speaking in Prague, which I'm like just endlessly
Nice.
honored to be speaking in Prague. So I'll
Yeah,
be
that's
there
very
in
cool.
June, and then I think I'm going to be in Miami for Mining Disrupt. We have a lot of businesses down there, and then I'll
Yeah.
be in Nashville in July. I don't know what the rest of my year looks like, but those are all confirmed.
Beautiful. Love it. And yes, please follow Michelle. She has one of the best Twitter X accounts, just dropping fire, dropping truth bombs all the time. Thank you, Miss Michelle Weekley, for being a playable character. We need many more of them. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for encouraging playable characters. You know, I agree. We absolutely need more of them.
Thank you for checking out this episode of the Playable Characters Show, brought to you by Bitcoin Trading Cards. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the future Bitcoin and financial experts we have on the show. Plus, we will be doing random big giveaways throughout different moments of shows, of collectible cards, sats, merch, and more from guests, so you won't miss anything. This show does not constitute any investment advice, only freedom advice. Everything you see here is opinions from the host and the guests themselves, nothing further. Please don't trust, verify. For full transparency, I do lead marketing efforts at Bitcoin Trading Cards, where we are trying to spread freedom to all of humanity and orange pill the world, one collectible physical trading card at a time, by making things fun and easy to talk about that normally make you want to cry. You can reach me directly through my email, brandon@btc-cards.com, with any inquiries or playable character suggestions. See you on the next one.